I do very much enjoy the PowerPoint format. It is unfortunate that last week there was not really one, but I have managed to put one together for what I have done in the past 7 days. And so here's what has kind of happened between then and now. So on the menu is we do have the 8 major powers that we are working with: China, Italy, France, Germany, Japan, the USSR, the United Kingdom, and the United States. But I've also been doing some things with the smaller countries, including planning a few things as well. So let's just quickly go over some of the stuff. So we'll start with the things that I have done the least about to the ones that I've done the most about. So starting with nothing, let's get to 90. So France is the country that I've neglected the most. I have not researched when the next election is. I have not researched party popularity. I have only defined their major leader as a liberal, and even then have not even implemented that into the game yet. There's not really a lot of things to speak on France. It's the country I have thought of the least. I have barely opened any files associated with France at all, which is a country that has been neglected for a major. Japan is another one that I've neglected, but of course there are a few things that do naturally happen with Japan in 1936. The invasion of Xinjiang, or the area that would be Xinjiang, or the Mongol Union, or North Shaanxi, or it goes through a couple of changes before we actually get that Prince character that we're quite familiar with in base game. There's also the Young Officers coup, which I have planned both a successful and unsuccessful outcomes for, but of course this is planned, and I'm using the word planned here with the definition of I've written this on a Google Doc, but I've not written this into the code. The Soviet Union, while Molotov is in charge, I've also planned for 2 other leaders to succeed him if they outplay him. And so really for the USSR, Molotov, Bunyoni, and Beria are the 3 leaders I have only thought about. And I do have news events that don't appear in game yet, but I've planned news events for each of their successors. Apart from that, there's nothing really done with the USSR. The United Kingdom, I've added King George's death into the game. This is an event that does pop up, and we'll look at this soon. And I'm also planning the abdication crisis, as I think it's something that's neglected in base game, and did actually lead to some interesting consequences that I would like to explore, and have the person playing England actually feel, I guess, connected to a king outside of just gives me this bonus instead of this bonus. Nationalist China, which is the part of China I'm focusing on first. It's the most powerful of it. I've defined the ideology popularity for H.H. Kung. This actually exists in the game, and there's 3 other factions who all exist in the game-ish. I've written notes in the code so that I can remember things later, but I've also planned for Nationalist China to have a bit of a collapse as well if things go wrong, and ideally a collapse in a way where they don't get destroyed by Japan on the Second Sino-Japanese War. Was it Sino-Chinese? Can't remember. During the war. Italy. So I've not really done a lot with Italy. Luigi Federizzoni is in charge to begin with, and I've written a note somewhere that there are potentially 6 people that succeed him. I don't think all 6 of these people are going to make it to base game when we actually get there. There are certainly some individuals that are likely to. Balbo and Bono, of course, are naturally popular Italian figures at this point in time. And having a absolute monarchist path is I'm on the fence about for Victor Emmanuel III. But so far I have a list of 6 possible successors, 7 leaders if you include Federizzoni to not be replaced, but we're going to see what will happen. And for the Italy-Ethiopian War, I've also planned a successful outcome for Italy. I've not written this as well, but also I planned an unsuccessful one, which is likely just going to lead to someone going to replace Fedezoni a lot quicker. The United States is the one that I've put most care into. It's a sad and unfortunate fact that I am a proud Anglo-boo, so I very much do like the United States of America, Anglo-boo, I mean, America-boo. So I have overdone a few things for the United States. I've planned 8 possible leaders for the 1936 election, but only 4 of them are in the game so far. And every election between 1940 and 1952, there are 8 leaders out of a pool of 12, which, doing the maths, this is nearly 60 leaders that I have made news events for, but only 4 of them appear in game. I've also planned for an American Civil War, but this is not added into the game, and I want to be a little bit clear on a second American Civil War. It's a very fun trope to have in old fiction, where the United States falls into civil war again, and then it leads to whatever consequences of that. Now, I very much don't like an American Civil War to be a mechanism for something grander with America. I think it should be devastating to America. Reconstruction took a long time after the first American Civil War, and there's still scars from that first Civil War that are seen in America today. So if a second American Civil War were to happen in the game, consider it a fail state, or a fail state of the United States in this mod, as even if a side is successful in it, out of the sides that's not been defined yet, but if a side is successful, it's decades before something meaningful happens, and particularly in the 30s and 40s, where if America does civil war, they aren't prepared for the Cold War. They're lacking behind. And so it's not really a great position for them to be in if they were to civil war, even at the start of the game in 1936, and by the end of the 40s, feel reasonably strong. Just, I don't want to undersell how devastating a civil war could be. Germany is also a country that I have focused a lot on too, but it's the one with the most tangible stuff added into the game. I've added a focus tree that takes about 3 months to complete, and at the end you get a choice between Hess, Himmler, or Göring, all with portraits. Now, I've also added an event for Germany where they get an event about hosting the Olympics. Now, I rank this as the one that I've added the most into because it's not content I've planned, it's content I've added. So all of this we'll be able to see in-game soon. There's actually a few extra bits that I do want to go over. I have dealt with mostly the major powers here, but I have gotten a little sidetracked, so we're going to go through all the minor countries that I have, at least in a meaningful capacity, or in any capacity, really planned or added things for. So Albania, I've planned 1 Republican path and 3 monarchy paths on who will replace Zog. I'm not going to go into further details on this, as planned means drafted, and drafts means to be scrapped. Australia, I'm planning a Lang Labour path, Jack Lang being a leader of Australia, that leads to independence from the United Kingdom and the declaration of the Republic. I have not really thought of other paths for Australia outside of Jack Lang so far. Assur is the only country so far that actually has national spirits, as it's the first that appears alphabetically, so I can have fun with it. It's just the country I throw things at to see what happens, and then I'm going to try and apply other things to other countries. But I do have national spirits that appear in the game now, which I'm proud of, and I've planned for Afar to interact with mostly Italy and Ethiopia, and what direction that could take. Austria, I've planned a monarchy path for Otto von Habsburg and how that may be possible, and unfortunately, it's really hard to justify Otto von Habsburg being the monarch of Austria and then reforming Austria-Hungary in 1936, particularly with the federal state of Austria being an Austro-fascist dictatorship, because Otto hated Austro-fascism, probably with the same, if not more, hatred he had for the Nazis, and so trying to make him work with nationalists and not really there's going to be some out of character moments just to be able to make history happen or alt history happen. Argentina, I've played a military dominant path. So if you sort of like just continue the infamous decade with military corruption until the late 40s, I've planned a cute little path that involves Maria Eva Daurt, or whatever. That's Eva Peron. At this point in time, Eva Peron has not married Juan Peron, and I like the idea of whatever military dictator is sort of most influential, she'll gravitate towards for both her benefit and his benefit, whoever it may be, because this is kind of how she behaved historically as well, and it's always fun to throw in characters in slightly different situations anyway. So I've mostly been thinking about Eva Peron here for Argentina. For the Belgian Congo, I've planned a civil war and what that might look. No further details, but we need, for colonialism, one domino to fall. Ireland, planned how the Irish Free State's 1937 constitution is going to be, and how that comes to form. Spain has many dummy events that allows the 1936 to be in the Liberals' favour. Now, Spain infamously has a civil war in 1936, and we'll get into why that won't happen soon. But to make that happen, I do need the Liberals in charge and not the Popular Front or CEDA. For Switzerland, I've planned how Switzerland will be reacted or affected by the unique leadership structure. More or less the entire federal cabinet is going to vanish. But there's a bit of a twist involved there that might be applied later. Turkey, I've planned in Alexei Liv's path with Ataturk for this. Ataturk obviously disappears. He's the leader in 1936. But of course, being the popular figurehead of Turkey he is, some of the more fundamentalist Kemalists are likely to react in a way that is silly. And so I've planned sort of my Tabaritsky path to be within Turkey, although I'm not going to make it as unhinged, and I put in quotes the Alexei Livs because I don't really want it to be seen as a Tabaritsky path, but there's no other comparison. And also for miscellaneous stuff, I've added dynamic locations for the Olympics. So the Olympics will appear in one of 4 countries every single time except for in 1936, which is, it makes the game feel more dynamic if there's more unique things that happen each time you play. So, I've only got some of the things I wanted done last time done. I really got sidetracked. We went through quite a few of the minor countries rather than the major countries. I really wanted all the major countries' solutions to their shift in power to be resolved this week, and I've only really done that for the Soviet Union in theory, Germany in practice, the United Kingdom in a lot of drafts, and I've not really done it for the United Kingdom, for Spain, the United Kingdom, for France, for China, for Japan, and maybe for Italy. Maybe, but those drafts are easily malleable into something else. So, what to do now? So, let's get something done. Germany's succession is drafted, the skeleton content for the United States is there, and more or less there's surface level plan for Italy and Russia. I just spoke on this. For the rest of the majors, it's really unplanned nonsense. I don't really know what's going on, and I need to stop focusing on minor powers right now. So, what to do? We attack what's weak. So, China's weak at the moment, France is weak at the moment, Japan is weak at the moment, and the United Kingdom is also weak at the moment. These are countries that I would like to at least have something meaningful applied to. And so that's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to do for the next week is exclusively focus on these 4 countries. They're lacking behind, and it would be good to have everything develop at the same pace. So while I've focused on 4 countries that I feel are much more favorites of mine, I'll do the 4 that are on the other side. I'll also touch up a little bit and actually have Italy at war with Ethiopia, and actually what I've planned for the Soviet Union to be put in the game. But the main focus this week should be China, France, Japan, and the UK. Now, I do want to show some things that has happened in the game. So, of course, these are the 8 major powers that exist in the start of the game. I've turned sound off here as it might conflict with other things, but for the German Reich, we do have, I guess, this is Hesse's popularity, and this would be Himmler's, as you can see here. Now, I've not really localized here, and in the game files for Hearts of Iron 4, there is an ideology called fascism, and I can't really remove that without causing a lot of issues, and I can't really use that without causing a lot of issues. So I've just sort of written my own as DOTD fascism, and when I remove all other references of base game fascism, I'm just going to knock out that first part, the DOTD. But as we can see, Germany has its thing. Now, we'll go through. So, Assyria has national focuses that I have added. This is a slightly better version of the one that appears in game of its Desert Warriors, and this is a fun one that I keep going back and forward on to sort of signify, I guess, the position Assyria is in. This is, I guess, the popularity of the monarch here, and these two ones here are mostly just pro-Italy, pro-Ethiopia, as I want Assyria to pick a side, and if it wins, it wins, and if it loses, it loses. Sort of, have a bit of fun with it. For other countries, for example, Afghanistan, Albania, Austria, these are sort of countries where I'm sort of trying to get the popularity wheel to be a bit accurate. For countries that aren't democracies, it looks a little basic like these, where it is just more or less or fewer, I guess. 4 or fewer are parties available. But if we go to a democracy, for example, Argentina, you can see a little bit of, progressive, well, that's liberalism, the yellow, but there's a tiny bit of progressivism and a tiny bit of democratic socialism. With Chile, very diverse. Bolivia, kind of the same. I think it's Colombia that the conservatives are just not participating. They're abstaining from every election. So this liberalism just basically exists. There was a very tiny amount of communism support, which I included. I don't like it if it's just 100%. It's a little hard for Bhutan and Congo to sort of for me at least, to try and justify other parties that existed at the time, because they didn't really. Brazil, of course. I think these are mostly the ones that I'm at the moment. Yeah, because most of them look like this, where it's just 10. So if we look at the United States, it's just all 10 ideology groups. Spain is the one that I think is interesting. It's not an alphabetical one. I sort of went out here on my own free will to sort of define them as such. And I think Spain is an interesting one. We can start and see sort of effects happen. Because Spain does have a lot of dummy events, and I'll show you, I guess, sort of the dummy events that are appearing. I am more or less, whoopsie daisy, I'm more or less taking a much more, if the scale of this mod is between Kaiserreich and TNO in its linearity, I feel as though I'm kind of in the middle but closer to TNO, where I want only countries with content to be playable, and I want everything to follow sort of a reasonable structure. So most focus trees do look like this. So Germany's is the only one that doesn't, and I guess we can look at it from a distance here, where there is a focus tree here, and I tried to work with a focus. I made one myself. I made it a little too big, however, so I'm going to have to cut it down and maybe change a few things here and there. But none of them really have effects at all, except for this one here, which is choosing the next Führer. So if we just play with Spain, every couple of days we get a pop-up. I did some localization here, but it's likely not going to get any more localization until we actually are ready to focus on Spain. But it's sort of the unavoidable is sort of teasing sort of the idea of, in base game, it's called the inevitable civil war. You can't avoid the civil war, you can just plan for it. This is sort of teasing it, being like, oh, something unavoidable is coming. It's dismissing the government. No one's really popular at the moment. And so because of the conditions that Spain is in, government gets dismissed and the popularity changes slightly. I've not defined the parties at all, but these, the Reds and the Green is the Popular Front. This is the Radical Republicans, Conservative Republicans, CDAC, which I forget what that stands for, but those are like the corporatists who are much more right-leaning, and likely the Civil War would have gone very differently if they were the ones in charge instead of the Popular Front. And these are small nationalist parties down here. So if we just play out, I guess, Spain by just clicking the events that pop up, so this is the event where King George dies, which we'll see a few more events pop up. Violence from the far leftists, as they were. This is not just me trying to make things up, although I am twisting a few things just to make this happen. Because at the end of this, I guess, election cycle, the party with the most popularity would be in charge of forming any coalition, assuming it has less than 50%, which I've set up in a very we'll get. I'm just excited to show you as well. So end of second round, which is so the gamble here is so this is the event where because of the party popularity, the Liberals actually have the most. So they're technically in charge of any coalition building, and I am forcing a coalition to be built between the Liberals, the authoritarian Conservatives, and only the Democratic Socialists. Now, the only way I can justify the Civil War not happening in 1936 is that the Radical Republicans of Spain have to win. Liberals are also the only group of people who are willing to work with both the left and the right, or at least I will be justifying it as so. Historically, the Radical Republicans in Spain were closer to the right than they were to the left, but if we during the Spanish Restoration, of course, the Radical Republicans were more progressive than they were liberal. Just in the Republic, they became more liberal, then progressive. And so I can call back to be like, hey, well, they did care about the working class, or at least during this election, they care about the working class, so much so that they steal the votes from the Popular Front, which they can form a coalition with the entire Popular Front. But I do want there to be an inevitable civil war, 1939. So to make this happen, the Popular Front needs to not be that popular. How I do this is the Liberals will form a coalition with CEDA, and only the Democratic Socialists of the Popular Front. I want there to be sort of a sense of betrayal from leftists, where some of them are in government, but of course for this to happen they had to make, I guess, a deal with groups of people that they didn't like, or allies of theirs, and so I want there to be sort of something a bit unstable that allows for, well, if we click this all up here, in about a day, but this is so Goring just automatically got into power, which is interesting. We'll get to that. But this event here is supposed to be, there's a grand coalition, which a grand coalition is the major powers, the major parties of a political system working together to form a government rather than one major party and a lot of minor parties that closely associate themselves with them. And so the Grand Coalition, I think, is a beautiful, silly way of having the Republic survive only for an additional 3 more years. So that is it for Spain. Because I delayed the event, the AI will every single time, I believe on March 14th, decide, which is roughly the same time for the election to happen. April 1st is because of the time of these events, they're all 9 days, and there's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's only 9 to do. That translates to April 1st for the Germans, of which they got Göring in charge this time, which is interesting to see. And that's more or less, I guess, the skeleton content of Spain. We didn't really go through the content of Germany. All the events are blank. There's no localization. There's barely symbols, of which this symbol appears here. If you click on the box, it also appears, but it does not appear here. So I'm really struggling to actually get symbols to work. As we play out the game a little bit more, there will be a few more pop-ups that will appear. One of them will be the Olympics, and then we'll get the US elections. And I just think it's interesting to show people, or at least to show what tangible work I've actually put into the game. Now, you might notice in the corner, briefly, the dog that keeps collecting error messages. I've learned what is causing these errors, but it's going to take a while to unravel it, and it's mostly variables that don't exist that are being referenced. And the more I work on the game, the more that the game won't reference these variables as I'm slowly replacing files. So those 12,000 errors are mostly just military industrial organizations checking if a country is China, because there's a variable called is literally China that keeps getting referenced. And there is a few that pop up that are map errors, which they'll resolve themselves soon enough. I'll find exactly where they are. I know they're in China somewhere because I affected some states there. So this is the Olympics of 1936 with Berlin. Now you might have noticed that I have really long titles for the events. That event was called World.901001, which I put in a system in the world events in a way to organize world events by country. The first 3 letters define a country, and the other 3 is what news event it is. I don't assume a country will have more than 1,000 events, and the way that I have defined countries is not just alphabetically who is first. I've broken up the continents into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, I believe. 9 is for additional stuff, and 0 is for non-canon stuff, which I thought was a little bit fun. So this is Bora who won. Bora, I believe, is a progressive Democrat of 1936. And we can also look at the title again. 511 means America, and this is the first to come alphabetically or numerically in this case. But this is Bora's event here. So we can actually look at other events that can happen. So if we go, so this is Alf Landon here. Then we have Wendell Willkie. Oh, Bora must be the progressive Republican then, because this is Willkie. And then this is, God, I forget his first name, but his name's Bird, spelled with a Y. And so these all exist for, I guess, these all exist for, I guess, the countries at play. We can also, I guess, play that's the United Kingdom's one. What is Germany's code? Hold on. Let me just, is it this here? No, that's the Spanish Republic. We can look into the code. So this is what I mean, where the countries in Africa start with 6, and then we just have alphabetically that. So Afar 601, Congo 602. This here is the United States, but I'm looking for Germany just so that we can see the events of the other outcomes, which okay, 112. So, whoops. So event world 112.001 is Hess remains in power. Himmler gets power, and that's Göring gets power. This is more or less what I've done, and it actually has it doesn't look like a huge amount that I've actually done. I mean, a lot of skeleton content appearing in Spain is fine. If we also look at Afar, you might see that the ideologies have shifted because of national focuses, which may need balancing. But beginning to do most of this has been a little annoying, especially since the lack of experience that I do have. But getting the ball rolling, I do feel confident. For example, after I added this, it was very easy enough to add this, and making the portraits or making the icons were pretty fun anyway. I mean, when it came to, I guess, making the portraits, I've had fun with doing that. So if we, so the code that I have included to replace Hess is to retire the character and then promote Göring, which means Hess is not going to appear again. So we can't look at Hess's portrait, but we can look at the one that I have done for Himmler, because I do love showing off. So Himmler is the second option, and you know, apart from the fact he is a monster, what a beautiful boy. So again, this is mostly everything that I've done so far. That is tangible. The code does look a little atrocious, and if we scroll down a little bit to where is it? It's the Olympics. I am struggling trying to have the Olympics appear to the next country. As you can, well, we'll just quickly go over this. The news event will proc at the time it does. I do this because of on events here, which give the specific time for this to proc. This is the photo. This just means that the it is triggered only means that it's triggered from here. It can only be triggered from here. Major yes means that every country will see this, and there's one option that appears. And I've been trying to set a variable that then picks the next one, and as you can see that these, I mean, this news event is supposed to be the next one that appears in 7 days, and we are now in November, which 7 days from August is not. We can actually look at, I guess, the Olympic events that exist, which would be that's Tokyo, that's Rome, that's Helsinki, and then this is that one place in Switzerland that keeps wanting to have the Olympics. But I am struggling to try and get this to work. One way I know how to make it work is that the hidden effect will have a 25% chance to send an event to one of the 4 countries that want to host the Olympics, saying congratulations, you'll be hosting the Olympics in 4 years, rather than dealing with a variable. I can just have an event chain which just follows a natural line like a choose your own adventure book, so we don't have to worry about variables later. Because it's a little annoying at the moment to try and do this, and I've also tried to do this with a secret country that exists on the world as well. So if I just do this within everything, it should be fine. I don't think there's much else to show you outside of me trying to look good while programming, but everything seems to be, I mean, progress has been made. I am sort of being a little mean on myself because I did want a lot more done. I did a lot with the portraits, and I was very happy and excited for knocking out almost 100 in a week, although a few of them were done prior anyway, but there were quite a lot of ones that I was proud of. And so I want to, I guess, try and continue the passion in the same way. Outside of that, though, this is everything. Next week, I should be able to show what France will look like, what the United Kingdom looks like, nationalist China, and Japan. And then I'll get this to turn into Japanese-occupied Mongolia as well. And we'll make sure that a beautiful boy appears in replacement of this beautiful boy too. Maybe here too. But yeah, I guess thank you for keeping up. Next week there'll certainly be more, and we'll orientate it outside of, I guess, the typical big bads of World War II. Thank you so much.